Crime scene cleaning isn't about bleach. It's about time. You learn that quickly when every minute between death and discovery writes its own story in dust and smell. By the time I got the call from Maple Street, the story was already wrong. We only enter after the detectives finish, after the coroner leaves, after the tape comes down. But when I stepped through the front door, the house smelled like lemons and rehearsed grief. That's not how a fresh homicide smells. It smells like iron and rot and silence hanging from the ceiling fan. This smelled like a hotel lobby, as if someone had pressed citrus into the drywall. I froze on the threshold and watched the light make halos on the polished floorboards. My name is Daniel Vega, and I've cleaned after things you don't want to imagine. I don't do gore, I do math. Floors, vectors, fluids, dwell times. You treat a house like a lab report, and it tells you where the truth tracked through. Maple Street wasn't telling me anything. It was advertising how hard it was trying not to. Detective Inez Ramos met me in the foyer. Her notebook snapped shut like a decision. She's the kind of cop who writes down the way your eyes move. "We're released and cleared," she said. "Family wants it habitable before morning." "Whose family?" I asked. "The victim's fiancé." She paused. "You'll see his mug on every channel by dusk." My boots whispered over a floor that had been vacuumed in overlapping Z's. There were no crumbs under the island stools. There were no coffee rings on the counter, just a reflecting pool of clean. I pulled my ADP meter, swabbed the stainless, waited for the readout. 0.03 relative light units. That's hospital operating room clean. That's not how anyone lives, not even the neat ones. Upstairs, the bedroom was another story that didn't add up. They'd removed the body hours earlier. The blood I expected to see, the patterning that tells you who stood where, was absent, scrubbed, blotted, replaced by nothing. But the light told on the room. Circular swirls across the dresser, small enough to be microfiber, large enough to be panicked. Under the bed, the dust lay thick where a mop couldn't reach. And behind the trash can, a thin crescent of pink ran down the wall and stopped at a baseboard seam. I touched it with a swab. It ghosted under my glove, more cleaner than blood. Ramos watched me watch the room. "Something?" she asked. "Someone cleaned this place before you processed it," I said, and let the words hang, because they felt like an accusation. She didn't bristle. "We found what we needed," she said. "Enough to call it a homicide." "Then why does the house look staged for a realtor?" Ramos gestured at the windows. "Neighbors say they heard a vacuum at 2:30 and smelled bleach by 3. And the 911 call?" 5:12, she said. I wrote it in my head the way I always do. 2:30 vacuum, 3 o'clock bleach, 5:12 call. You don't clean after a murder and before you find it, not unless you already know what you're going to find. I walked the hallway and let the house breathe around me. You can tell a lot from what people don't clean. The fridge top was pristine, but the coils behind it were furred with years. The shower drain was unscrewed and reseated crooked, the kind of mistake you make when you're hurrying. On the closet shelf, there were 3 folded microfiber cloths still damp, each labeled in marker: kitchen, bath, bed. The labels were neat but the marker bled, cheap ink and wet hands. There's a difference between the way a professional cleans and the way panic does. Professionals chase corners. Panic chases surfaces. I took photos the way Inez's team would, wide to tight, context to clue. I'm not law enforcement, but chain of custody still matters when what you're holding might be the reason someone goes away. In the garage, the trash looked like a diary. 2 empty-gallon jugs of sodium hypochlorite, 1 bottle of quaternary disinfectant, a torn sleeve from a box of nitrile gloves, and a crumpled receipt from a hardware store timestamped 1:18 p.m. The victim, according to the fridge magnets, was named Tessa Lynn. She taught piano and collected postcards of lighthouses. Her fiancé, a civil engineer named Mark Dudley, had found her on the bedroom floor at 5:12 and called it in with the steady panic of someone trying to sound useful. He was now at the precinct giving his statement, and according to Inez, asking when he could bring cleaners. "You're here," she told him. Use the company we authorize. He'd said he wanted it perfect. The words sat between us for a second, and Inez wrote it down like a thread to tug later. I checked the smart home panel in the hallway. Lights, locks, HVAC, appliances. Half the cameras were offline, their thumbnails gray with a red slash. But the robot vacuum had run a full deep clean at 2:31 p.m., and the dishwasher had cycled at 3:04. Someone told the house to polish itself before anyone dialed for help. You can pull the logs? I asked. With a warrant, she said. We already have one for the doorbell cams. I lifted the vacuum's dock and found a smear of something fluorescent beneath, the kind you only see under a forensic light. Inez raised a brow. You carry one of those? In the truck, I said. But we don't light shows in client homes without you watching. We went outside, got the kit, and came back to make the invisible honest. Under blue, the room bloomed, streaks on the headboard, arcs on the floor that shouldn't have been there if bleach had been poured after. They were pre-cleaned signatures, the ghosts of a scrub before the blood could truly speak at all. Inez didn't argue. She rehung the yellow tape and called it back in. Scene reopened. I watched the blue light crawl over paint and glass while the house betrayed its own alibi. Under the baseboards, a faint line of adhesive dusted the trim like frost. Painter's tape leaves that when you peel fast. You don't tape plastic to your walls after a murder. You do it before. The robot vacuum sat innocent on its dock, its top still warm. I popped the bin and a wet ribbon of gray lint sagged out, lemon bright with a metal aftersmell. Under blue, the lint fluoresced like a map. I bagged the bin, the roller, the side brush. Someone ran a deep clean across the living room and kitchen, then drew a no-go line around the bedroom. That's staging by app. Inez called tech. They could pull the map, sometimes even thumbnails from onboard cameras if the model had them. We'd settle for logs. I moved to the dishwasher. The cycle had ended at 3:04, heat dry on. I twisted the filter and lifted it slow. A blush of pink swam in the catch basin then diluted away. I capped the filter and bagged the drain screen. Quats, chlorine, surfactants. This house was dressed in armor before anyone bled. Professionals stripped contamination. This felt like premeditation. Inez watched me watching the sink. We process drains, she said. But not like you do. Your call, I said. She radioed a warrant extension for traps and appliances, then stood in the doorway like a doorstop while I pulled the P-trap on the master bath. The threads were wet, cross-threaded, and sticky with lemon gel. Inside the curve sat a pinch of gray that didn't belong to soap. I nudged it onto a swab, watched it cling like silt. Inez labeled, and the bath breathed bleach at us like a confession. The receipt from the trash kept tugging my sleeve. Inez sent a unit to the hardware store. Timestamp 1:18 p.m. Purchase of 2 gallons bleach, 1 bottle QAC, a contractor pack of microfiber, nitro gloves, and a 6-pack of blue painter's tape. No tarp on the list, but the adhesive line along the baseboard didn't care about lists. Who bought it? I asked. We'll see the footage, Inez said. I want to hear the voice at the register. In the laundry room, the washer door hung open and smelled like citrus and heat. I checked the trap, the gasket, the lint screen nobody knows exists. Fibers came up blue under light. Microfiber leaves a signature, like any tool. Whoever cleaned wrote their name 100 times. The fiancé called while we worked. Inez put him on speaker. How long is this going to take? He asked, voice sanded down to polite. As long as it takes, Inez said. I just want it perfect for Tessa's mom. We'll let you know when you can return. He hesitated. Make sure you hit the baseboards, he said, and the line clicked dead. We stared at the baseboards already hit. People don't know what to say to cleaners. But they do know what they fear you'll miss. In the bedroom, I took a knee and ran a finger along the carpet edge where the adhesive line faded. It came away gritty. Painter's dust, not drywall, mixed with the lemon. Someone taped plastic there, then tore it in a hurry. The headboard streaks curved at a right-handed angle, waist height for someone tall, shoulder height for someone shorter. 2 cleaners, 2 speeds. Panic rarely brings a friend. Practice sometimes does. Tell me about Mark, I said. Civil engineer, works for the city, no priors, steady, neighbors like him, Inez said. And Tessa? Teaches kids, volunteers, nothing in her world suggests risk except being alive. Any cleaning service? No subscription. She does it herself, once weekly, Sundays. It was Tuesday. The routine was wrong by days and by tone. Tech message photos from the neighbor across the street. Their door cam had angle on the driveway. At 12:42, a sedan pulled in. At 12:46, a trunk opened and out came a roll of plastic and a box with blue on it. At 1:08, the same sedan left. At 1:19, it returned. Hardware store run, then something forgotten, then the run again. No sign of Tessa in any frame. Who's the driver? I asked. Plate comes back to Mark's company car, Inez said. He told patrol he'd been at a site visit until 5. Maps would argue. We stepped into the garage for air that didn't smell like disinfectant. On a pegboard, hooks were empty where a tarp might hang, where a hammer might rest. Dust outlines are honest. They keep the shapes of things that leave. Near the water heater, a towel lay stiff with lemon, folded like a warning. I bagged it without unfolding. Inez's phone buzzed and she stepped back into the kitchen to take it. I stayed with the garage, listening to the way houses hold their breath when you stop moving. The smart hub chimed from the hall, a cheerful sound that made the hairs on my neck lean. A new automation had been created. Bedroom lights to full at 5, lock all doors at 5:02. Someone had told the house how to behave for discovery. Inez came back with her voice tight. Hardware has footage, she said. It's Mark, and he's not alone. Who? A woman we don't recognize. She carried the plastic. He paid. They moved like people who've done this before, heads down, separate at the door. Inez's jaw worked. We have to find her. You will, I said, and pointed at the robot dock. But first, let's see what the house watched for us. Tech arrived with a Pelican case and a Neuro kit that looked like a lunchbox. He cradled the vacuum like a patient and pulled diagnostics through a clean laptop. Logs bloomed. The map flagged a geofence at 2:29. The geofence drew a neat red rectangle around the bedroom at 2:29, with a note in the log none of us expected to see. Created by guest. The hub had a device name for the guest account, too, because people are lazy with labels. Pixelina. The name slotted into the hardware receipt like a missing tooth. Inez called the store and pulled a loyalty lookup, a number tied to a short-term cleaning service. Tech coaxed thumbnails from the vacuum's bumper camera, grainy stills meant for a marketing brochure, not a courtroom. They were enough. A glove tugging blue tape across a baseboard. A shadow of plastic blooming from a roll. A reflection in chrome, Mark's profile bent to tie something. The timestamps landed before the dishwasher cycle, before the robot started, hours before the call to 911. Inez found Lena at an apartment 4 blocks away. She did not run. She talked like someone rehearsing the truth since she saw the news. He hired me to make it spotless for his mother-in-law, she said, then asked me to tape plastic. He ran the house off his phone. He asked me to set the robot to avoid the bedroom. I got a bad feeling and left at 1:30. Inez asked why she came back. He said I forgot my bag. The neighbor video watched her return, face pulled tight, in and out with nothing in her hands. Back at the precinct, Mark wore the same polite tone he used on the phone. He was helpful, reasonable, devastated, until the maps and logs brought yesterday to the table. He did not have an answer for why a bedroom needed a no-go line at 2:29. He did not have an answer for why bleach and quartz hit the drains before panic hit a phone. He had none for the towel folded beside the water heater. He did not need to confess. The house had already done it. I cleaned Maple Street 3 days later, for real this time, after the team finished their last pulls and the locks changed. The lemon smell clung to the vents, sour, like a note. I put on music, not because I wanted company, but because the silence in rooms like that grows teeth. I scrubbed the edges the robot could not touch, the corners tape had tried to erase, the place where a life stops and a story starts lying. The truth is simple. This house was clean before the murder happened. That is why it shines wrong. That is why the light looks staged. People think I erase what happened. I do not. I restore what remains honest. When I left, the baseboards were just wood again, the air was just air, and the vacuum map was cleared. I locked the door and handed the keys back to Inez. She nodded. We both knew the house would remember, even if nobody else wanted to.